What's the dumbest reason you can think of to start a war? A fight over a sports team? An argument online? Well, hold on. Because in 1859, two global superpowers, the United States and the British Empire, brought themselves to the very brink of all-out war over a pig. That's right. A single farmer on a tiny, forgotten island shot a pig that was raiding his potato patch. He never dreamed that one pull of the trigger would have diplomats in London and Washington, D.C. scrambling. What followed was a ridiculous, yet deadly serious standoff. The British Empire, the most powerful military on the planet, squared off against the young and restless United States, all because of a hungry pig and a few potatoes. This is the almost unbelievable and almost entirely bloodless story of the Pig War. Our story doesn't start with the pig, but with a map. Or more accurately, a failure of a map. Back in 1846, the United States and Great Britain signed the Oregon Treaty, meant to finally draw a border between their territories in the Pacific Northwest. The treaty said the boundary would run along the 49th parallel. Simple enough, right? But when the line hit the coast, the language got fuzzy. It stated the border should continue through the middle of the channel which separates the continent from Vancouver's island. To the diplomats in their fancy drawing rooms thousands of miles away, this sounded perfectly fine. But if you actually glanced at a map of the area, you'd see the problem. There isn't just one channel, there are two. To the east is the Rosario Strait, to the west is the Haro Strait, and sitting right between them is a strategically important chunk of land called the San Juan Islands. Naturally, both countries claimed the correct channel was the one that gave them the islands. The British pointed to the Rosario Strait, putting the San Juans in their territory. The Americans insisted it was the Haro Strait, which would make the islands theirs. With no clear answer, the San Juan Islands became this bizarre, cohabitated territory. British settlers from the powerful Hudson's Bay Company set up a massive sheep ranch. At the same time, a couple dozen American pioneers started showing up, staking claims under the U.S. Donation Land Claim Act. For a little while, they all got along surprisingly well. But this strange harmony, with two rival nations trying to govern the same piece of land, was a powder keg waiting for a spark. And that spark was about to come from a very, very unlikely source. Enter our two main characters. On one side you have Lyman Cutler, an American farmer trying to build a life for himself on San Juan Island. Like most farmers, all he really wanted was to be left alone to grow his crops, specifically his potatoes. On the other side, we have our antagonist, a large black pig. This pig belonged to Charles Griffin, an Irishman running the Hudson's Bay Company's sheep farm. Griffin let his pigs roam free, and this one pig had developed a deep and passionate love for Lyman Cutler's potato patch. Again and again, Cutler would find the pig in his garden, digging up his precious tubers. He'd shoo it away, fix his fence, and hope for the best. But the pig was relentless. Finally, on June 15th, 1859, Lyman Cutler had had enough. He spotted the pig once again, feasting on his future French fries. In a moment of pure frustration, he grabbed his gun and shot the pig dead. Soon after, Charles Griffin came looking for his pig and confronted Cutler. The conversation that followed is a masterclass in stubbornness. According to one account, Cutler admitted, "It was eating my potatoes," to which Griffin shot back, "It is up to you to keep your potatoes out of my pig." Still, Cutler tried to be reasonable. He offered Griffin $10 for the dead pig. But Griffin wasn't having it. This wasn't just any pig. He claimed it was a prize boar and demanded an outrageous $100. Cutler refused, arguing the pig was trespassing and he wasn't about to be extorted. What started as a backyard dispute was about to spiral into an international incident. Furious, Griffin went to the British authorities and demanded they arrest Lyman Cutler. The threat of arrest changed everything. For the American settlers on the island, this wasn't about a pig anymore. It was about sovereignty. They saw it as the British trying to force their laws on what they considered American soil. In a panic, they drafted a petition begging the United States for military protection. That petition landed on the desk of Brigadier General William S. Harney, the hot-headed commander of the U.S. Army's Department of Oregon. Harney was famous for two things: his aggressive style and his burning hatred of the British. He saw the settlers' plea not as a problem, but as a golden opportunity to assert American dominance and finally stick it to the empire. Without a second thought, Harney dispatched a company of the 9th U.S. Infantry, 66 men, to San Juan Island. Their commander was a captain who would later become famous for a very different reason: George Pickett. Yes, that George Pickett, who would go on to lead the disastrous Pickett's Charge at Gettysburg. On July 27, 1859, Pickett and his men landed on the island with clear orders: prevent the British from arresting any Americans. The U.S. military had just occupied the disputed territory. The potato-loving pig had officially been promoted to a geopolitical crisis. Britain's response was swift and overwhelming. The governor of British Columbia, James Douglas, was not about to let the Americans just walk in and take the island. He dispatched 3 Royal Navy warships to the waters just off San Juan. Suddenly, Captain George Pickett and his 66 soldiers were staring down the barrels of some of the most advanced naval cannons on the planet. As August dragged on, the situation ballooned. The British force grew to 5 warships, carrying over 2,140 sailors and Royal Marines, armed with more than 70 heavy cannons. On the other side, the American force swelled to nearly 500 men with 14 cannons. The two sides were camped within firing range of each other, turning this tiny island into a global flashpoint. Ever the showman, Pickett declared, "We'll make a Bunker Hill of it," conveniently forgetting that the Americans had technically lost that particular battle. The air was thick with tension. Governor Douglas, enraged by the American audacity, ordered the British naval commander to land his Marines and engage Pickett's men. The order was given. The world held its breath. A single shot could have started a third war between Britain and the United States. But then, something incredible happened. The man in charge of the British fleet was Rear Admiral Robert L. Baines, a seasoned veteran who knew real war when he saw it. When he arrived and took stock of the absurdly tense standoff, he received the order to attack. He refused. In a moment of supreme common sense that arguably changed history, Admiral Baines declared he would not involve 2 great nations in a war over a squabble about a pig. One sensible admiral had just slammed the brakes on the entire runaway train of war. With the immediate threat of battle over, the situation entered a new, deeply awkward phase. News of the crisis, which took weeks to travel by ship, finally reached Washington, D.C. and London. Officials were horrified to learn they were on the verge of war over a farm animal. President James Buchanan, already swamped with the tensions that would soon explode into the American Civil War, sent his top general, Winfield Scott, to clean up the mess. Scott, a respected negotiator, met with Governor Douglas and hammered out a temporary fix. Both sides agreed to reduce their forces on the island to a token garrison of no more than 100 men each, pending a final diplomatic settlement. And so began one of the strangest military occupations in history. For the next 12 years, a company of British Royal Marines and a company of American soldiers coexisted on San Juan Island. They were technically enemies, but with nothing to do and strict orders not to cause trouble, they got bored. So they started hanging out. The soldiers would visit each other's camps for dinner. They held sports competitions and horse races. They even celebrated their national holidays together. The Americans would invite the British over for the 4th of July, and the British would return the favor for the Queen's birthday. As park rangers on the island note today, the biggest threat to peace during this time wasn't military aggression, but the large amounts of alcohol available. While their governments were stuck in a diplomatic stalemate, the soldiers on the front line of the Pig War were becoming best friends. This bizarre, friendly standoff lasted for a dozen years, right through the American Civil War. Finally, in 1871, the US and Britain signed the Treaty of Washington, agreeing to settle all their outstanding disputes through peaceful arbitration. For the San Juan question, they needed a neutral third party to make the final call. And who did they pick to mediate a dispute between America and the British Empire? None other than Kaiser Wilhelm I of Germany. The Kaiser passed the issue to a three-man commission in Geneva. After nearly a year of studying maps and legal arguments, the commission announced its decision on October 21, 1872. They ruled in favor of the United States, declaring the Haro Strait to be the true boundary. The San Juan Islands officially belonged to America. In November 1872, the British Royal Marines peacefully withdrew from their camp. By 1874, the last of the American troops were gone too. The long, strange crisis was over. The Pig War had set a powerful example, showing that even the most ridiculous international disputes could be settled without bloodshed. So, let's get this straight. A pig ate some potatoes. A farmer and the pig's owner argued over money. This led to military posturing, which brought in generals and warships. An admiral's common sense stopped a war, leading to a 12-year joint occupation where enemy soldiers became drinking buddies. And in the end, the German emperor had to step in to decide who owned the island where it all happened. It's a story so absurd it feels like it has to be fake, but it's a very real part of American and British history. And in the end, after all the tension, the saber rattling that brought two superpowers to the brink, and a diplomatic resolution that would shape international relations for years to come, the only casualty of the Pig War was the pig.